What is up, my fellow gamers? Welcome to the channel. I am the Lethal Shinobi, and today we're going to be taking a look at some important game mechanics from ailments to elemental affinity and other key details such as blessings and marks. Let's get into it. Many of you new players might start to get overwhelmed with the amount of mechanics in GodFall. Hopefully I'm going to break it down for you in the easiest way possible to aid you on your journey here. And even for you veteran players, sometimes it's easy to forget the smallest of details. This might serve as a reminder for you. In this video we're going to cover the core attributes just so the basics are covered, and then we're going to move on to deeper mechanics such as ailments, better known as status effects, and what element is tied to them, the varied blessings you can acquire in the game, the marks that can be applied to your enemies, and the types of resistances you can have. I'll also try to include a few other smaller topics such as stasis and overhealth at the end of the video. I want to try to keep this video as short, as sweet as possible, so I will not be covering critical hit damage, breach, polarity attacks, and soul shatter. I'll be working on a separate video as I feel like you can go into a lot more detail with those combat mechanics. So first up, let's go over the attributes. We have might, spirit, and vitality. Might increases the damage dealt by your normal attacks and combos. Vitality increases your maximum health and improves your damage dealt by your siphon attack. Spirit will increase your ability damage, including damage done by your weapon techniques, shield abilities, and polarity attacks. Spirit will also increase the amount of health recovered by life stones and increases the overhealth granted by banners. So if you're somebody that wants to focus on raw damage output on your normal attacks and combos, go ahead and spec into might. If you find yourself wanting to use techniques all of the time, go into spirit. My suggestion here, guys, is that you spec into both might and spirit equally until you get to the end of the game where you can really start to refine your build. With the core attributes out the way, let's move on to ailments first. You'll hear me refer to them as status effects some points in the video, but it's the same thing. Ailments are damage over time effects that can be inflicted when you deal damage to your enemies. Each type of ailment can only be inflicted when you deal the damage type associated with that ailment. For example, physical damage can inflict bleed, fire damage can inflict ignite, earth damage can inflict poison, water damage can inflict chill, air damage can inflict shock, and void damage can inflict curse. Now that you know what element is tied to which ailment, you can increase the chance to inflict these status effects and increase the damage output of those effects with items and abilities. Have a look at the example here on screen. This item increases both the chance to inflict the status effect as well as increase the damage output of the elemental stat associated with it. This is a great segue into us talking about resistances. Once you know how to deal elemental damage and status effects to your enemies, you can get a better understanding of how to protect yourself against it. As a general rule, the various realms, earth, water, and air, will have the enemies who deal the respective elemental damage of that realm. I do want to note here that some enemies will deal a different type of status effect such as void, but you'll have to just learn this as you progress through. If an enemy applies a status effect to you, you'll be able to identify it with a prompt that appears in the bottom left hand side of the screen. To be honest, you shouldn't really struggle with this until you reach the end game activities, but if you do struggle, use this knowledge of the elements to your advantage and equip items that you have to provide these resistances. It is also worth noting that enemies do not have resistances or weaknesses to any specific type of status effect, so you can use whichever one you find the most comfortable. Alright guys, let's talk about the blessings in this game. Some items will grant you blessings when activating them or fulfilling a specific criteria. You can see here, blessings are temporary enhancements to your abilities that can be gained through skills and items. It is important to know what each of the blessings are and what they do. So the blessings of power will increase your damage dealt, the blessing of endurance will reduce the damage taken, blessings of luck will increase your critical hit chance, and the blessing of infusion will increase your chance to inflict ailments. You also have the blessings of haste, which will increase your movement speed and attack speed. You can also gain greater blessings, stronger versions of the original. A greater blessing will replace its basic counterpart and not stack on top of it. So if you're working on a build with Phoenix, for example, focusing on her fire damage, you can go ahead and equip items which will give you the blessings of infusion, increasing your chance to inflict that ignite status on your enemies. Let's move on to some additional effects that you can obtain in the game, such as Overhealth and Stasis. Overhealth is a temporary bonus to health that the player can gain from their abilities and equipment. Incoming damage depletes your Overhealth first before your regular health. It's like having an additional health bar. Overhealth will degenerate over time, but know that there are some items which stop the degeneration of Overhealth. The maximum amount of overhealth you can gain is equal to your maximum health. So just as an example, if you had 1000 HP, you would be able to have an extra 1000 HP of overhealth. Something else to note guys is the stasis effect. Stasis can be applied to an enemy and once done can incapacitate the enemy for a short period of time. Enemies in stasis cannot move or attack. The stasis will be removed if you damage the enemy, and not all enemies can be put into stasis. It's useful to know about blind guys. Blinded enemies are temporarily stunned. Blind affects all enemies nearby. However, do note here that some more powerful enemies cannot be blinded. Alright, let's move on to marks and effects. Marks are temporary detrimental effects that can be applied to your enemies. The mark of fragility will increase the damage dealt to the marked enemy. A mark of weakness will cause the enemy to deal less damage to you, and a mark of leeching will restore health whenever you hit that specific enemy. Alright guys, well that concludes what I have for you today in terms of the effects in GodFall. If you found the content useful or enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. If you have any questions, please put them down below in the comments. I will try my best to answer them. Like always, I want to thank you all for being here. I wish you all a blessed day and I will catch you in the next one.